How did you find your way into this movie?
Well, my friend Eric Feig works at Summit, and when things didn't work out with Catherine Hardwicke, I think I was the first person that he came to do it because of my background in vampirism. No, because of my background in CGI and directing young actors and also in adapting novels. So it sort of made sense to them.
Did you have to sort of audition? I mean, they were like, okay, we'll meet with him, and then you got to go in there and do the dog and pony show. And is that the way it went, or was it like you were in?
No, I think for them there's always the are they crazy meeting, which is like a meeting where you've essentially agreed to do something, and then they meet with you just to see if you're going to start barking while sitting at the table. So I passed that test, but crucially, Stephanie Meyer had approval over the director of the film. So I spoke to her about the book and about the script, and she asked a bunch of questions about why I was doing it, and if I felt that I could tell this story in spite of the fact that I was a man, that kind of stuff, which is reasonable.
Fill me in on this background regarding Taylor. He was in, he was out. There was all this speculation about him being cast. What's the full story there?
Well, the full story from my perspective was that he was never out, but there was a question. There was some doubt brought about by the fact that in the second book, Jacob is supposed to be 6'5", so there's that kind of fact that Taylor isn't, and also that it really requires him to go to a lot of emotional places that he hadn't been seen in the first movie. But I thought that was inherent in the first movie, that you only saw the sweet-natured side of him. And I really thought he was very winning in the first movie. So I thought, well, I can take this guy, and he can go to the angry places that he needs to go to.
Were the doubts on the part of the producers, or doubts on the part of yourself, the entire team, or just a general feeling?
I didn't have any doubts. I think that, I don't want to point fingers, but I think that Stephanie, the studio, the producers, didn't know if the guy who they'd seen in Twilight was the guy who was going to be Jacob in the second movie, simply because it wasn't there for them on screen. But it's kind of my job to be able to extrapolate to that point. And I made a and the fans too actually wanted him. The fans wanted that continuity. That's another reason backing me up. I think that they would have been very upset if we had changed Jacob. But also I thought he would naturally just do it. And he was willing to show not only the determination to kind of rebuild his entire body, but to sort of go to those emotional places that he had to in order to play the part.
You mentioned before Golden Compass. How much did that movie prepare you for this? I mean, obviously with the the digital work.
Right.
Is that the only way, or how?
I think it prepared me in several ways. It gave me a grounding in CGI, in the process of CGI, which is a very specific one, and doing that on a large scale. It gave me the connections with very talented CGI people that I needed. It taught me the lesson that you must adapt a beloved book faithfully. I'm
just curious, how much of that overshadowed what you were attempting to do with the book? I understood that the studio was very concerned about religious overtones and driving away audience members, and just curious, what was that experience like for you?
It was a terrible experience because I was able to shoot what I wanted to, but then the cut of the movie was taken away from me, and any reference to religion or religious ideas was removed, and the darkness and threat at the end of the story, anything that made it not a happy popcorn type movie at the end was removed. The voice of a key character was redone. All of this against my better judgment and eventually against my will. And the fact of the matter is, the people that the studio was afraid were going to raise up arms against the movie did it anyway. I told them the best thing to do is to do an honest version of this film, because at least then you know what you're referring to. It's like Mark Twain said, you know, it's better not to lie, because then you don't have to remember what you said. If you're honest to a book, then you really can't go wrong.
Well, that must be, so you come in and you're like, all right, this is a terrific book. It has some, compelling, controversial elements. Mm-hmm. And then, we want to make that book only without the controversial elements. Mm-hmm. So you're not making this book, you're doing something else. I mean, right. At what point does someone come to that realization, like, well, wait a minute, what are you doing here? You've taken everything that makes the book dynamic and fascinating, right. And now you can't help but come up with a watered-down movie. I mean, how...
Yeah, I think I'm guilty. My original sin on that project was to agree to water anything down at all. And I, was careful not to offend anyone's sensibilities, while at the same time including the religious ideas and the intellectual ideas that were in the book. And I wrote what Philip Pullman and I thought was a pretty great representation of his book. From that point on, as soon as the shooting stopped and the first cut of the movie was presented, I was just hammered. And my editor was fired, and another editor brought on, and gradually power was taken from me. So in terms of what I learned for New Moon is, if you go into this situation, you should be straightforward about what you're going to do. And I told Summit I only want to make a faithful version of this book, and it was fine with them. But if it hadn't been, I would have been out.
Do you come, I reckon, certainly now you can look back on it, but you seem to, you come through an experience like that stronger, better, maybe better for having gone through the fire that way. Is that true, or is that just wishful thinking?
I think for a long time it wasn't true, and I lost a lot of sleep, literally. I was really upset for a very long time, and making New Moon has been, has sort of healed me of that, because I realized, oh yeah, you can actually work with people collaboratively at a studio and all have the same intention.
It seems like Hollywood is always going to blame the director. Oh, that movie didn't do what was expected. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you're only as good as your last movie and all of that. But here you bounce into a very lucrative franchise. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You said a friend helped you come into it, or mm-hmm. It's such a great landing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. It's really funny. I've been very lucky. I mean, if I didn't know Eric, I might not have been the first person that they thought of. I probably would have been on a list of people. From really sort of possibly being blamed for destroying an imminent franchise, Golden Compass, to hopefully maintaining and maybe even strengthening this franchise, it feels like a really good recovery.